Well then everyone, whilst my squire starts setting things up, I want to introduce you all to myself. My name is David, my squire's name is also David, so it makes it very easy to remember. And today's little show is called Army of the Night. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you how a knight would get dressed for battle. Now, the knight here in England starts in 1066 with the invasion of the Normans. They bring over with them a culture of knighthood, a culture of warrior classes. It's this warrior class that would develop its arms and armour from sort of entire suits of chainmail, which are lots of interlinking little rings, into something far more sophisticated, such as this plate armour that you see here. Now, what I'm dressed in right now is everything that I can possibly put on myself. Everything else that goes on my body right now is going to need the assistance of a dedicated squire. Now, squires, for those that don't know, are essentially knights in training, or they might be veterans who have fought in many battles. Being a squire is the first, well, one of the last steps we're going to take to become a knight. It's not a guarantee of being a knight. It's not like today when you get into a job and you become an officer, a senior manager, or basically, to become a knight, you've got to either have friends in high places, or you have to do something pretty incredible. So David could be a squire for the rest of his life. I'm sure he won't be. David is a very talented squire, but the only person who's decided when he gets to become a knight. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll start getting some of this armour on. So first things first, it goes on in my particular case, and it is different with every suit of armour, is the bever, or the bevoir. It basically means big. A real baby's bib. Now, obviously, it is not there to act like a bib. It is there to protect my throat and the lower half of my face. And you'll notice that there is an articulation on the bever here, and that is so that I can raise it up to protect more of the face or open up so I need to see or breathe. Now, the next thing to go on after that will be my breast and back. So this is here to protect, the obvious organs, the heart, the lungs, the things you really need to protect to carry on fighting.
All the way down to the bottom?
Not all the way, probably there. Maybe one lower than sounds good. See, this is the thing as well. As a squire, will know the armour inside and out. There we are, perfect. So they'll be able to adjust up the fly to it quite quickly. Now, typically, when we're getting someone in armour for one of our shows here, it will take anywhere between roughly around 20 to 30 minutes to get someone in armour properly, to make sure that they are fully equipped, they're nice and safe to go into a combat situation. I have no doubt that back in the day it would have taken even longer. And the worst thing that's going to happen to me is I might get a small injury or an arm's not on correctly. But if you're going out into that battlefield, well, the consequences of armor falling off, breaking, could be a lot. Right. Now the next part to go on is going to be my standard, which is the lower half of the body. Now this particular armour of mine is an English armour. And it dates to roughly, it's based on armour, it's based on armour that dates roughly to 1490, so it's right at the end of the highest order of the Leeds so you would see an armour like this in the War of Roses, for instance. Now, the English armours, historically, are designed to be fought on foot, because that's what we love to do. We love to ride to the battlefield, get off the horse, and then start scrapping with people. That was the English style of fighting. And that led to a very particular design. So the skirt here is actually quite long. A lot of other armours you might see in our display have a lot shorter skirts. And that's because typically they would go into battle on the back of a horse. Where something as long as this will start to become quite irritating when you're sat on a saddle for a long while. So there's some stylistic differences there. Now Dave's just going to strap up the side of the armour with multiple leather straps, each one attached to a single blade here of the skirt and the breast there as standard. Now, whilst English armour is great, because I'm showing it off and I love it, it's lovely, it is not the most common of armours that you might have found during that time. The most prolific armour makers of sort of the medieval period would have been Northern Italy, or Milan, so Milanese armours, that's what we call them, and Germany, or what would be called Germany, and so the Germanic England's Holy Roman Empire, this would have created a lot of Gothic armours, as we might refer to. Now, these two armours come in very different styles, and they prioritise very different things. So, for the Italian Milanese armours, they prioritise protection above all else. They tend to be a little bit larger, they tend to be a little bit heavier, and they tend to have much bigger plates that will cover more of your body, so there's less gaps to exploit. So they prioritise raw defence, that was what they were going for. Now, the Germans, well, they prioritised mobility and endurance over everything else. So their armour was more form-fitted, their armour was often a little bit lighter, but it did have more exposed parts of the body. So really it's down to personal preference. And of course there are suits of armour that are made all over Europe, and each one would sit somewhere between that spectrum really, preferencing endurance, mobility, or raw protection. And you can't have both. So Dave's just finishing up there. Yeah, no problem. This does take a while. I probably should have eaten less over the winter period. That doesn't help. And that's the other horrible thing about armour, I must admit. It's not like your favourite pair of trousers or your favourite t-shirt that will just somehow still fit you 10 years later. It stretches with you. Metal doesn't stretch. This is a very good indicator whether you've been too indulgent or not. There we are. Yeah, please do. There we are. Now, Dave's just having a look at the points. So the points are leather waxed thread, and that is what my armour is hanging off. The legs are hanging off points that are attached to my armour jacket, which is this padded jacket you see here. And so it just goes to show that a knight's life really was hanging by a thread. Now these yeah, exactly, that's what you meant to say. So these points are waxed with beeswax. They're very strong. They are very unlikely to break, even if directly attacked or chopped. They are very unlikely to snap. If they do snap, you are in a bit of trouble, because the armour suddenly isn't attached to you anymore, and it hangs the body very awkwardly. So make sure your points are working very well.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Got a good point there, sir.
So this is the arm. We would break this up into the lower cannon, the cutter, and the upper cannon. So those are the three parts protecting the forearm, the elbow, and the bicep and tricep. Now my arms have a very distinct artistic style to them. We might consider the suit very similar to the Gothic styles of armour, but it's not quite exactly the same. The English armour tended to be, if they were to go for this decoration, rather natural in their design. They want to reflect nature in the wood or vine work. So it's very artistic, very beautiful. And I suppose the other part of armour is that we might think of armour in a very utilitarian way today. Think, oh yes, the armour is designed to protect you in battle. And yes, that is its primary job, but it's also designed to make you look good. It's a fashionable bit of kit as well. In fact, many of the armours that you will see in our collection were never on a battlefield. They were on a dance floor, not a battlefield. And it's the way of showing off your wealth. It's the way of showing off your fashion, your tastes. You know, this armour is only owned by maybe the top 1% of people at that time. You know, people often go, oh, is it like a sports car? No, it's like a luxury yacht. It is exceptionally expensive to own this one. So it really is showing off quite a bit. Now, we're going to put the pauldrons on. The pauldrons are these large bits of metal that sit over the shoulder, and that's a very important thing to take protection. Because when you're fighting someone, you're most likely to be struck on your head and your shoulder. You'll also notice that sometimes armour comes asymmetrical, and the left side is often more built up and more defensive than the right. And that is simply because most people in the medieval period were right-handed. And if they were left-handed, well, they would be considered quite sinister, quite untrustworthy, perhaps even witches. So a lot of people would change whether they're left-handed or right-handed, and they would try and make sure they learn right-handed all the time. What that means is that my right hand is light, so I've got the sword in there, just swing it faster. My left side, which is the side I'll be struck on the most, needs to be heavier and more defensive. So that's why we see that asymmetry in the armour. Now I forgot to mention on my legs, the three parts there. So the bit that's covering my green, the bit that's covering my calf is the green, the knee is the pollane, and then we have the crease which comes with the calf. So here we go, the second column there. Very nice. Perfect. Excellent. You go for this.
Will do.
So you can see now that the arms will come together. I can be struck or attacked. However, there are a couple of options that unfortunately are unavoidable with the technology available to these chaps in this time period. So the gaps that are exploitable are my armpits. These are very good places you can attack. The armpit is often seen as the window to the lungs, like I like to call it. You go straight in there, into the lungs, into the heart. The armpits are a very good place to get someone. On the inside of the elbows and the arms, again, you need these places exposed so you have that mobility. Often these will be protected by voiders or mail, but not always, depending on personal preference. And of course, the most exposed area on any night will be the back of the legs and the buttocks. And the reason why there's no armour there, it does seem a bit silly, why? Because again, we use to ride horses typically, and so you can't put plates armour there. It becomes very uncomfortable for you, it becomes very uncomfortable for the horse. And so that is always the area that is left exposed. Now, the corners themselves, as you can see, they come with wonderfully articulated fingers. There are two major styles of gauntlet. You've got your mitten style or your fingers. Mitted gauntlets, they tend to have large plates over all four fingers. They tend to have much better protection for the hand, but a lot less dexterity. Whilst finger gauntlets like these ones here, well, you're not going to cut my finger off. You still might break it with one of these, but much more dexterous. I can use swords more effectively, and I think also necessary. So yeah, it's just down to personal preference and what you require in those situations. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pop my helmet on. This is known as a salet, and it is the last part of the armour. No armica. No armica, my head's big enough. There we are. Right. So we're going to tear that underneath down. Flip up the back first? No. Try underneath and the feather should slightly lighter. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, excellent. So with that together, what we're going to do is we're going to put the lines down and the feather up, and you'll see that everything is well protected. Another sort of myth that people often get told with armour is that once you're in armour, you are going to really struggle to move around. The only way you get out of the place is if you're going to be sort of wobbling towards you, anything like this. It's not very intimidating. And the truth is that armour, whilst this one, for instance, weighs about 43 kilograms, is not so bad once you break it. So you can jump up and down with it, you can scrunch down a little bit, you can do whatever you need to do. You can even pull over. I might look like a turtle, unable to move.
Anyone want to take any bets on how long it'll take for him to get up?
What?
3 seconds over here. Who thinks?
That's optimistic.
5 seconds over here. Anybody want to know this action? Anybody else?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah, I think that's
all right. Shall we see how long it takes him to get up?
Yeah.
Ready? Steady, go.
2, 3, 4, 5.
There you have it. It's really not as bad as the film that you'll be able to make out. Now what I'm going to do just to finish up today's session is I'm going to put that visor up, helmet down, I'm going to take up that sword over there, and I'm going to strike a few poses, so you can get some pictures if you like, and then once that's done, I'm going to take it all off, not the whole thing, and I'll come and say hello to everyone. Now if you have any questions for myself or David here about arms and armour, feel free to have a chat with us, and of course if you want to hold on to the sword, or go to the sword, so I won't hold it off. You're more than welcome to. All we ask is you treat the items with respect, and if you're holding the sword upright, don't swing it around, don't shove up your nose, my nose, anyone's nose, and keep everything close to myself. David, like I've just proven, I'm faster than I look, and I will catch you if you run away with anything. If you have enjoyed the video today, you can of course donate by the donation station over here, and or you can give us your customer feedback, which is just as valuable. We want to make sure that the next time you come, we make sure it's even better and the experience even fun. But with that said, thank you very much. I'm going to disappear now under this visor, and I'll see you on the other side.
Sword, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, he's not using a great sword. I won't pass. Yes, all of this is here. With various types of steel as well. You can get different finishes as well.